Thank you very much. Let me go back in time for just a second to set the context. The EU as such was conceived as a peace project, and that has produced a certain aversion of power in Europe. And this is something that we needed some time to overcome that in consecutive treaties. And of course, the global power shift that we've been facing over the last 15 years or so, it's not solely determined by military power alone, but the military power still matters. And in this new strategic context that was set out at the beginning, it's very difficult to engage with new assertive partners from a position of perceived weakness. So, we need to continue working on the CSDP as a project, and we cannot do that. And we cannot use our toolbox that was presented to you by Pierre, this comprehensive approach toolbox, without military capabilities. Now, some basic features and facts about CSDP. We do a lot. We don't publicize it well, but we do a lot. We're running 3 military operations now: Anti-Piracy, Atalanta, the training mission in Uganda, and the one in Bosnia, and 8 civilian operations in places as different as Kosovo, Afghanistan, and Iraq. We are planning for more, mainly civilian missions at the Horn of Africa and South Sudan, looking also at Libya and Mali, and working more and more with partners, different partners, including the United States. And this is very visible on the ground. For example, in Kosovo, where we have a police contingent from the US of about 60 people. Well, the origins, of course, the CSDP very much started in and around the Balkans. So we had to overcome our trauma of the early 90s and to get our act together and concentrate on the neighborhood. And since then, we've made a lot of progress. I mean, some numbers have been mentioned. We've deployed 80,000 people in 9 years, which is quite impressive. And for the time being, we deploy more people than we employ as the European External Action Service. So it also shows the relative weight of the CSDP, with also spending quite substantial amounts of money on what we do. In Kosovo alone, I think we are spending about 160 million euros a year. That's the largest of our missions. The key characteristics of CSDP. I mean, this is very much a civilian and civilian-military thing. I mean, we do a lot of those very specific actions that nobody else can or is willing or able to do. And I'll come back to it at the end. Of course, we all refer to the new framework of the Treaty of Lisbon, but some things have not changed. So we still take our decisions by unanimity. So we need a lot of political will if we want to move forward. We rely on assets put at our disposal by the member states. We don't own anything ourselves, just our minds. And of course, we are not engaged in any kind of collective defense. We only do crisis management abroad. So the Lisbon Treaty has put CSDP into this toolbox of external relations of the European Union. We have different names for that comprehensive approach. I think you refer to it as whole of government. We can say in Europe, whole of 27, soon 28 governments and institutions approach, to make it a bit more complicated, which is a very European thing. But in fact, we really need to combine these 3 dimensions of diplomacy, defense, and development. That's what we've been doing, and the best example, I think, all the actions at the Horn of Africa. And there will be a breakout session on that, so I don't want to be specific at that stage. Given the magnitude of tasks of the High Representative, we need to set priorities, and these are also reflected in the areas where we engage. The first priority is neighborhood, Balkans, southern neighborhood, eastern neighborhood, then engagement with strategic partners, the traditional ones like the US, but also the new ones like India and China. Again, piracy, a good example where all permanent members of the Security Council really work together to try to tackle this common threat. And finally, of course, we still need to work, to continue our work to make sure that CSDP is really well embedded in whatever we do as the whole service. So this is not an isolated area, but really interlinked with other policy areas. Now, about the challenges. I mean, Libya has very much put CSDP on the spot again. It's produced a lot of frustration too in Europe. I think we've drawn some lessons, mainly about our capability shortfalls to our refueling, munitions, reconnaissance, intelligence. And we are now moving forward to address these challenges. Facts are very telling, in fact. I mean, we have about 2 million military personnel in Europe. We only deploy 4%. We have more than 10 producers and manufacturers of armored vehicles. It means there is a potential to streamline that and to get a better effect from what we have already in Europe. But of course, the member states need to move on that. And it happens at a time of financial austerity, where all member states and all defense ministries feel the pinch. Because of the financial crisis, there is a lot of soul searching going on in Europe. And the reflection on CSDP and what we want to do and where we want to go is part of this process. So it's not taking place in isolation, but it's an important process because we have to get serious about our shortcomings while not scaling down our ambitions. So, to conclude on the future, first of all, I believe that demand for the EU will continue increasing. I mean, there will be more and more demands for us to get engaged in different places. We need to build on our comparative advantage, on this comprehensive approach, whatever we call it. I think there will be more and more emphasis on civilian or civil-military crisis management, very specific actions. We will do a lot, as we've done over the last 9 years, on capacity building, security sector reform, for example. I think we will also engage in the areas where we have a very specific knowledge or expertise in certain areas like Africa or the southern neighborhood. And that would bring about a natural division of labor between NATO and EU, US and EU, and other partners. I don't think we should really set it in stone and draw a line. It will just happen. And it's already happening as we speak. Now, the work on capabilities really needs to continue. And sometimes, I mean, we realize that we need to bring this discussion to a real political level to make an impact. Everybody refers to the Chicago summit. We are preparing a nice package on capabilities for the Chicago summit, but we have to think beyond in order to make it sustainable. And we also need to face a challenge that we discussed with Jim yesterday, that the CSDP as such is translated into the national defense planning, which is for the time being not the case. And again, we are not a defense alliance, but this is something that we really need that kind of mindset that we need to promote. And finally, I think we are bound to do more with partners, not only because we lack capabilities in Europe, but also because of sometimes it's a question of legitimacy, and sometimes it's a question of effectiveness. And really to conclude on an example that I saw in Kosovo, something that was really very encouraging, very heartening, when I went to the so-called Gate 31, which is the boundary line between Kosovo and Serbia. The first person I bumped into was an American policeman with a European flag on his shoulder. Thank you.